this house. There's some whores in 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 this house. Hey guys, gals, and non-binary pals. You are watching The Chocolate Box. And thank you for stepping into the box. So this episode is entitled WAP, or We Aren't Perfect. And we're going to go over the stigma regarding relationships and sexuality and sex when it comes to the Black community. I know somebody out there was like, sex? Yes, we're going to talk about sex. So I want to start it off by saying this is an open discussion. This is an open panel. And these are my wonderful panelists, y'all. Smile and wave, y'all. These are the beautiful panelists that I have today. So, y'all, I want to know what's one of the most awkward things that come to mind when y'all think of relationships and sex in the Black community.
Lack of communication.
Lack of communication?
Catching something.
Can you explain that to us? Since it's a lack of communication, I want to know.
Like communication is like they don't be knowing. Like, okay, I put in the sense of most people don't like when you're upfront about what you like sexually. So with that lack of communication, when you try to talk to it, they get offensive. They go, "Oh, that's all you want." But my whole spiel be, if you feel like we're going to get to the point where we are going to have sex, I need to know what you like. In order for me to full blown satisfy you, I need to know. Like, I don't want to get in here and do you like I did such and such, and you don't like it, and now you thinking, no, my shit trash, and you going back to your group chat, oh, he sucked, that was trash. Oh, but you ain't giving me the chance to let me know what you like so I can give you what you want. So I feel like with that lack of communication, it fucks it up.
I love the thought that females have ladies, have y'all ever just like looked astounded at the fact that dudes really think that we have these big old group chats discussing they stuff?
Right. I mean, I've been in situations where I know it's true. I didn't see some group chats where I know it's true. Like because I have a lot of sisters. I'm number 9 out of 14 siblings. So I have older sisters and I have a whole bunch of homegirls. And I'll be seeing the group chats that be her and 4 other females, or her and 3 other females, just her and her best friend. And some dude name come up, or the dude they did whatever they had to do with comes up. And I'll be like, wow. So they really help me put me on game. Because like I begin to question ask, like, on your first time when y'all first had sex, do you hold back or do you go all out? I'm showing my ass.
Ooh, do you hold?
I'm showing my ass.
All out.
I'm showing my ass.
Oh, okay. Rashid, I want to know your take on do you hold back or go all out?
Nah, no cap. It depends on your vibe, right? Because it's like the way I look at it, right, is that messing around with each other is like, it's a privilege, right? Like I got a privileged dick, you got a privileged box, you know what I'm saying? So are you worthy of me even going all out on you in the first place? You know what I'm saying? Because it's like, if you can't handle what I put out, especially because, I'm curved, so period. Like, a lot of people ain't equipped to handle that. So because of that, I have to be like, I gotta meet you where you at. So I will give you dosages or percentages depending on where you at. Now, if I meet you at a party and a dance floor, you already gonna get a little bit more because I can already vibe you out like that because sex is on the dance floor, period. Like, you just gotta read the energy.
Well, so Crystal, tell me if you agree with this thought or disagree. This percentage thing, like I feel like if I'm gonna do it with you, I'm gonna give you 100% based on how I feel that day. So my 100% might be completely different if we done just had an argument versus if we didn't like actually been having a date and been chilling and kicking it all the time.
Right. So I'm just to put that out there, I'm a whole non-binary bitch. Mm-hmm. Okay. Don't include me in that gender shit. I already see a lot of the guys forming a lot of gender norms, but I think where we've been failed really is to believe in this type of binary sexual experience. Because in my cases, I have, had sex with a lot of cishet niggas, Some of them are great, but a lot of times people forget the orgasm is in the mind. So if you already aren't up front, right? And I hate to push you, DK, but I'm just gonna say go out and say people need to be upfront with what they want, and a lot of men aren't, especially a lot of cishet men, right? A lot of men are not upfront because they think that a lot of these bodies belong to them, right? We grow up in a society where I was, I guess, socialized as a woman, but as I'm coming into my whole like fuck gender space, there's really this kind of point where you realize, wow, I've been lied to about sex. And not only have I been lied to, but it's done me a disservice in me trying to find pleasure. So I'm a big person on trying to find pleasure. I haven't really had a lot of necessarily romantic relationships. I've had a lot of like intimate relationships with like friends. And I think everyone should build like intimacy with their friends, not necessarily sex, but have that like understanding. But for me, sex is all about pleasure. And I've definitely been that person where I felt like I had to perform a certain way to please somebody else. But I got really just saying fuck that shit. And I don't agree with the percentages thing because it's like, well, then what's the point of having the sex? You know, like what's the point of giving a little bit of yourself and not really, enjoying it? But that's just me. I know me and my whole other queer homies, we be talking about what we want to do. And again, it's about communication. I think that the best sex I've had, it comes from us being honest about what we're doing and what we want. Because when you're not honest, like I'll be quick to like, well, I don't have Tinder no more. I just got my phone back, so there's that. But there are those times where it's just kind of like wham bam, thank you, ma'am. But it doesn't have to be that way. And I think because I value my pleasure a lot more in this moment, I'm looking for someone who can be casual with the sex, but also understand what I need. And a lot of men don't want to give up that power because they think that it's reserved for a certain type of woman or femme, or let's say they on the DL trading it up, they get scared of that type of intimacy with it not coming with a title or this connection.
A lot of times people think that like sex is a power move. Like if we go back into like a lot of reasons why, like the origins of why people had sex to begin with was more so a power move. And they felt like if they took your body, then they can take over your mind kind of situation. I feel like a lot of times that's why it's like demonized when you like ask somebody who's not a male how many bodies you got, and like you ask them like how many people they have slept with. That's why like I know in my high school, I don't know if it happened to anybody else, but in my high school, it's very prevalent for dudes that they want to get to you. They say, well, I heard that you did this with these different people. And like the female or like the person who was not a dude is supposed to feel like, oh my God, I'm just such a, basically they wanted you to say that they wanted to demonize the word slut and make it feel like it was such a horrible thing. So I think, and I think we still do it in the Black community. Like it's very much so if you got bodies that we hold like men to a different standard, because they can go, they can have sex with whoever they want to, whenever they want to, and come back and it's like you still the GOAT, you still the MVP, but every other Black person is kind of like, oh, that's nasty. And I feel like we kind of jumping out of it a little bit with the progression of time, but that's been like a thought process of mine. I don't know if anybody shares like thoughts on that. DK, do you want to add your 2 cents?
Yeah, actually I do. Like what you're saying about dudes not being like upfront and stuff like that. Excuse me. I honestly agree with that because I know some dudes like that. They try to be around the bush. But how I was raised, I stopped being like around the bush with certain shit from like the jump. Like I get the whole pleasure thing. Like that's my thing. Like I'm gonna say it. I'm a select. I am. So I'm not gonna sugarcoat what I want, or I'm not gonna sugarcoat the fact that like I want to. Like I stopped doing that for the longest. Like because I feel like shit wasn't me nowhere. So, like that's really dumbass mindset to have. Like you can't hide the true intentions because at some point in time your true intentions gonna come out. And in my opinion, you rather get your true intentions out from the jump and let her decide on what she wants to do. Like you can't be like. So I feel like you just gotta be like, you gotta lay it there. Like I want to have sex. We can build to it, or we can go ahead and get to it and do what we got to do. And you can go to choose from there how we know how we go beyond and how we go past. And the thing with K, while you on the double standard of men and women when it comes to body counts, I've grew up around that. I still have I would say still have friends who have that mindset, but I constantly try to get them out that mindset because my whole thing is I hate double standards. Like because they ask me all the time, they're like, so if a female had the same amount of body as you got, you'll be alright. That ain't got shit to do with me. Like, oh, so would you still have sex? If she ain't got nothing, if she doesn't have any disease or anything like that, when she gets to me, that's me. That's okay. I just have to be one of her bodies or her last body. Wherever it happens right there, it happens between us. Like, oh, what if she got a kid? Okay, show me. I want her. I want to see why she got a kid. Like that whole you got this amount, X amount of bodies doesn't phase me. Like what you did before me is none of my business. Like I can't judge you off what you did,
And
especially with the shit I did. I can't judge nobody.
you know, that's a nice thing to say. And I'm going to be the one to say what I think some people are thinking because of the facial expression. It's nice to say, I don't care about her body. That's nice. However, the issue at hand, and I know like this personally, because I have male cousins. That whole I don't care about her body goes only as far as like if you're just trying to have sex, not if you're trying to have a relationship with somebody. And I've seen it downfall so much that people say they don't care about body, but they only don't care about body when it's just so somebody else can be another body to them. Like,
Yeah.
go ahead, Crystal.
No, I just because before you brought up when we were talking about power and we were bringing up the body count, I just kind of wanted to bring the focus in that there is some privilege here coming from certain people who have the means to say they don't care, or I'm this way but my homeboys are still that way. But the reality is patriarchy is not dead, right? Well, a lot of the times we don't have the agency, and we haven't been taught to have the agency. That's something we're learning and trying to have our own pleasure. So I think it's important to remember that even if you don't care, we still haven't dismantled this whole system around even Black people attaining pleasure. So I think we should start there. And I think more specifically, and I just finished this chapter. It's called White Tears, from a book called Eloquent Rage by Brittany Cooper. I think everyone should read it. The language is a little outdated because it was 2016. Popular culture keeps moving. Um, but I think especially for cishet Black men, Black mask folks who are trying to rebuild masculinity, to understand the real historical origins of why we have certain preferences, why we have certain expectations from partners. That whole body count, if she has kids, this and the third, we're not asking Black men those questions, right? I mean, if you look at some of your favorite rap niggas, right? What do their partners look like? How do they treat the opposite gender? Or I'll just say Black femmes, because Black femininity comes in so many different spectrums, right? And men won't openly say they love certain things, which is when I talk about the trades and the DL niggas and all of that. So I think it's important to be mindful that if we're going to understand relationships from a sexual point, from just a partner and what we're looking for in intimacy, we really have to not be afraid to not just reject these norms, but then also sit with ourselves and say, why am I thinking this way? Or why are my friends thinking this way? And what's one way I can tackle that? Because you're not going to get what you want if you don't do the work, right? You have to sit with yourself. And I think a lot of us, especially young people who are exploring different things, exploring different relationships, testing the waters, I think it's important that we kind of sit with ourselves a little bit and ask ourselves what makes us feel good, what makes us vulnerable.
But if I don't know how to articulate to him, hey, I don't like when you do that, or I do like when you do that, and he's not receptive of it, then where does that leave me? Because I've been in a lot of I know I'm
Hey,
probably the youngest person in this little chat, and I've kind of been like struggling with like that part of things because once you realize what you like and what you don't like, you're good. Like, but it's about making sure your partner is receptive. And I know that with like a lot of my partners are black, y'all. Just throwing it in there, my partners are black. Um, we have this moment where like you articulate to them, hey, this is what I like, and it gets ignored.
yeah, yeah.
That you were touching
That's a
on
great
something that I was going to bring up, and I really would love to know from everyone what your thoughts are on consent, and because I think what you're touching on is the consent, right? And this goes back to the agency, how we're taught that we have to please others, especially as Black women and femmes, before we please ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times we have our consent violated. I've had my consent violated. Friends have had consent violated. So then that brings another element of how we trust, and do will they trust our words even if we say, hey, we don't like that? Because I've got an attitude when I'm like, yeah, this is not really working. So then they suck their teeth and we find a different position, but it makes it awkward.
This episode of The Talk is sponsored by Pretty Brown Girls Bling and More, where all of your personalized products come with a special touch of sparkle. This Black owned business specializes in custom shoes, masks, t shirts, and more. Make sure you follow them at Pretty Brown Girls Bling on all social media platforms. If you'd like to be featured as a sponsor on The Talk, click the link in the Chocolate Box's bio. Now let's get back to the show.
So, y'all, that was a very, very great beginning part of our discussion. I kind of want to dive deeper into in the bedroom. How do we establish a safe space? I know earlier, Rashid, you said you didn't like the word safe space, but just for the sake of the people listening, how do we establish a safe space with our partner as we're learning ourselves and navigating what we like as well and what is pleasurable to us? Demi, I'm gonna pass this first off to you so you can elaborate on it a little bit.
I would just say I never really had this experience. I feel like most of the people I've been with are like people that I trust. So I didn't have feel the need to like create a safe space first, like or have like that type of discussion. But I think like having a safe word or like just even what DK was saying before, if you were communicating prior, then you would know like what you like and what your partner likes. And so then y'all wouldn't deviate from that because you already know what you guys like. So I'm not going to do something that you told me that you don't like within the bedroom because we already communicated about that. So that's also like, I feel like you have to make the safe space before you go into the bed.
There's a couple of things in my mind because I think also too there's a lot of privileges that certain people have access to, right? So I'm a full disclosure, I'm a bigger woman, right? I'm thick with two C's, no K. I'm 5'9", right? So that automatically, if I'm having relations or whatever with a cishet man, that kind of puts them, unless they're taller than me, most of them are like my height or whatever, and that's a whole other thing. But I find that it's really hard to even stick up for yourself because when you, and I'm kind of touching a little bit on fat phobia, right? Because there's a lot, I don't know if anyone who in this space who is plus size has experienced, okay, come on, you experience life differently because the world is constantly talking about your body in a negative way.
Mm-hmm.
So when you first come into contact with somebody who's like, oh no, I think you're the shit and I want to do X, Y, and Z, you're kind of taken aback.
Yeah.
And you're kind of afraid to even say what you like or don't like, because then there's that fear that they're not going to want you anymore. And I think that's also something we kind of have to destigmatize, is that idea of being chosen, right? Because you can also choose what you want. And I think that agency is so important. So I think, yes, it has to be communicated. And I'm all for the one night stands, not necessarily like you know,
Mhm.
I'm just on the street prowling. But, I think it's really complicated to think about, what a safe space can look like when literally it's just kind of like, okay, I'm feeling this energy right here. I'm feeling that energy, right? And I'd like to hope that people are more mature and thinking about the communication and being mindful of people. But usually, a lot of experience that I've had, I feel like I've just had to take them. And I think now, as I'm really exploring pleasure, I think black people should all be able to explore their kinks.
Consent is both ways, and I think a lot of times dudes don't realize that they can say no because like no works both ways type thing. Because at the same time, I can remember times where if somebody and I were having conversations and like just hanging out, and I'm gonna be real. If somebody wants to like scoot up on me, that's supposed to be a hint. I'm not like there's too much going on with Title IX and stuff, especially when you get to college and like workplace. Title IX is real. So me, I'm already black on top of being Hispanic. So I got double minority negative stacked against me, and having a stockier body, that looks like I can do damage or like do work out in some fields or like crazy stuff. Like I'm already a threat. So last thing I need is to say, oh, just because I cuddled and put my arm around you, because Title IX, as soon as you feel unsafe by a little bit, it's game over for me, especially in this complexion. So I really have to respect your space and what you say, and then keep it bare minimum to barely even make a pass at you or move on you, because I got a life to live and I got goals I gotta get to.
Well,
I,
I 100% agree with that, but like also, if we dive deeper into that, because I know I'm definitely one of those people who I'm not gonna be straightforward. Like I'm not gonna be like I want your in my like I'm not going to do that.
you
However,
don't gotta be that blunt.
However, like bluntness and consent is very much so like needed because I feel like certain times I know Crystal touched on this a little bit. If you aren't the ideal version of a black woman that people see, or like of a black person that people see that is desirable, because for so much people call bigger, heavier set people BBWs. Y'all love that term. Y'all
Drake
love
said
that
it.
term.
Drake had a whole line on
Drake
it.
trended it, you know what I'm saying? Lil
Y'all
Wayne's
love
Lollipop
the
music video
term.
helped put it on, and Drake took it.
Y'all love BBWs, and then y'all love a specific body type, right? So I'm not even gonna, because I have my best friend is super skinny, a beautiful woman. However, it's been said to her, "Oh well, you don't have enough." Like, and in that moment, once a person lets you like points out that flaw, you mentally are like, "All right, okay." And it's kind of one of those moments where it's like, do you proceed with having sex with this person and just come up to it like, okay, well, he chose me, or do you just decide to be like, no, I don't want it? I'm more on the side of you gotta muster up that strength and be like, no, if you can't respect my body, if you can't respect me, if you can't respect my personality, then you don't need me at all. Like, and I've been very blunt with that from not even from like a younger age because I used to struggle with it, but I know like for the past 2 years, it's been very much so. You don't if you don't respect me, you don't deserve me.
Right. It goes back to the whole thing with worthiness. I mean, I don't. It's not like, I mean, your interjection into what I was saying. Well, I mean, it's a good like supplement, like supportive information. So I mean, it goes kind of with what I'm saying. So which I think is another point people should be aware of. But as a male, especially when all these things are happening so much, whether you're this or something else, like it's a if you actually care, you actually woke to care, like what do you do? Like where do we go from here? Because I'm not saying, oh no, like tell me exactly what you want me to do right here, right now. Like be like, hey, you want to spend the night? I would like to do something, like, hey, would you like to have sex? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
It's crazy because this stems back to DK's first point
it
of
does communication.
communication. I feel like we're finding like a consistent thread of lack of
Yeah,
communication and like us deconstructing what we were taught to think, right? We were taught to
right.
think that sex is taboo. We were taught to think that there are roles in sex. We were taught to think that, oh, well, since I'm heavier set, I can't necessarily speak up about it because you chose me. And that's not it. That's not it at all. It's more so a communicating. Us just
Right.
us the stem of all of this is communication.
I'd
Right.
like
But
to also point out communication is not always verbal. And I think when you were talking about the Title IX stuff, I get it, right? But I want to bring into conversation, I don't know if you remember the whole, there was an article on Jezebel about the issue with Aziz Ansari, right? And there was a whole debate in my undergrad class, Business Law 101, about, was her consent violated? And a lot of people were really blaming the victim about she should have said this, she should have said that. But there was a lot of nonverbal cues. And so I think we also need to be receptive to, because we notice when there's tension in the room. We notice when things are uncomfortable. Like someone will say something and the room will go, and
Mm-hmm.
now everyone's on edge. So I think it's also important to recognize that this communication that we're talking about requires us to be so much more aware. And when you do have the privilege to not be aware, again, a lot of Black men, mask folks who fit this stereotypical presentation of gender, um, sometimes when you have that privilege, you don't get to see things, right? Just like if you are a body that is desirable, the thought of how things are communicated may not come into your role because you don't have to deal with those constant hurdles of trying to find a place of feeling safe and finding pleasure.
I want to know some of y'all's like tips and tricks. I know this whole episode was full of little nuggets of like this is what y'all need to be listening out for. But when it comes to, perfect is not real. Honestly, you're gonna mess up. You're going to feel horrible some days. You're gonna feel great. Um, but when it comes to navigating sex in a black body, where we have to constantly unlearn what we were taught to accept or to know. What are some of your tips and tricks to how you slowly but surely like unlearned what we've been programmed to know about sex and what we've been programmed to see?
I think it's just about like conversations like these where I'm getting information from different viewpoints and different experiences, different lifestyles to just take from that and then, okay, now I could, oh, I didn't know about this or I didn't know about that. Oh, let me apply it to that. And then also experiencing more. Like I was mostly in a long relationship, and then I got out of it, and then I was dating someone else, and I was like, oh, new experiences. Oh, you do it this way. Okay, let's do it that way. And then dating someone else. Okay, let's try this. Dating someone else. Let's try this. So just like switching it up, not trying to stay with, okay, this is my idea of sex, relationships, etc., and being stuck to that, fixed on that, like being open to different possibilities and trying to just go with the flow type of thing.
definitely.
Rashid, what are some of your tips that helped you along this journey of, knowing yourself and knowing your partner and really, I feel like for like black men, it's kind of like a different type of situation when it comes to like sex in general. So what has helped you and what are like some tidbits that you can give to other black men watching?
All right. So for all dudes, let's see. Acceptance is key, right? Number one, accepting. You just accept where you at. Accept that whatever's going on is whatever's going on, and be comfortable being uncomfortable, right? It's okay to be awkward. It's okay to be weird. It's okay to crack jokes and laugh if you with your partner or whatever during the midst of everything. It makes the whole experience better. Also, with that, just unpacking, like whatever you got going on mentally, libido wise, whatever, just unpack that. My disclaimers, like perfect example. Kevin Hart made the joke about it. Eat real short time over there. So like if you can get somebody to get out themselves, I gotta say it like a dude to dudes, you know. So, if he can roast himself and out himself, like be comfortable saying, "Yo, this is me. This is what's up." Either you gonna accept it or you not. Kind of like PK said earlier, be unapologetically yourself, even in the bedroom, respectfully to your partner, respectfully. Don't be assholes and fuck niggas, please. We got enough of that shit. And then also with that, accept the blemishes of yourself and your partner, right? All insecurities. I don't believe that one body fits all, like one body type fits all kind of thing. You can enjoy people that are petite, you can enjoy people that are voluptuous, plus size, it doesn't really matter. Like, I go from a Coke bottle to a 3 liter bottle real quick, and I treat them all the same. Like, I don't care, because I'm about vibes and energy and what you bring to the table. Like, hands down, period. And then the last thing with that blemishes part, number 4, your imperfections make you perfect, right? Because nothing's ever going to be 100. Nothing's ever going to be fully planned out. So take that, run with that, and do your thing. Health tip for dudes. For better testosterone and T levels, as a dude, if you are overweight, if you lose 30 pounds, it will help out your testosterone levels, immunity systems, and you gain an inch back, bro. Do that.
I'm gonna have to do some research on that because y'all know. I don't know if
I
y'all
do
know.
this medical background on top of all the other stuff I do. Got you.
I don't know if y'all know, but your girl is single and she do like big boys.
Okay, I mean, I'm never afraid of a husky nigga. Okay.
Boom.
I think for me, I wrote down a couple of things. I'm a writer. I gotta have my little notepad together, get my thought.
Right.
I think the number one thing is just research. However that comes to you, whether you're on Google asking questions, I don't know if y'all got the premium student Spotify to come with Showtime and Hulu, right? I know there's a lot of racism in the sex ed kind of field, a lot of white supremacy, if you will, but I would encourage people to find Black and brown sex educators, right? Who can really break down things in a way that is comfortable for you and you're getting it from a source that looks like you. Because a lot of the times the sex education we get comes from people that don't look like us, or it comes from people who are following very archaic ways of those mainly white people who've created these systems of gender and sexuality. So I say that. 2, I say masturbate. I think everyone should be masturbating. Everyone should be, taking their mind there and really figuring out what feels good to them. It's something that I actually took from, I went to a kink brunch. It was called Black Femme Brunch, and it was a whole brunch full of Black women and femmes, right? And even though it was all on Zoom, like they had little workshops, like they had things on pedagogy or what kind of lube to use. All that stuff is great, right? You don't have to necessarily stay for the play party if you don't want to. And that's another sector, figuring out what you like. But I think masturbating and really being in tune with what you need, because again, the orgasm is all mind, it's all spiritual. And even pleasure is not always an orgasm or sexual, but just knowing that about yourself is very important. And I think the last thing is to don't be afraid to say no and don't be afraid to leave, right? So if you've already had the conversation, you've already said a couple times, like, this is not really working for me, right? At the end of the day, you don't have to push it. There'll be someone out there for you who's willing to do what you're asking them to, and then you to reciprocate, and you can really build that relationship. And I think it's time that we all get out of our own binaries and really kind of explore that. Because I think once Black people really get to a point of realizing that they can be who they want authentically and however that is, that's really going to change the game on how we permeate these relationships.
Yes, 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 yes. So we have reached the end of our episode. Thank you for stepping into the box.